Welcome back everyone to another video. No background filter, no nothing. Decided to record like this for the day because I think this one is a little bit well, I feel a little indifferent about this one because there's a lot that's transpired since my stream yesterday. A lot more information has come out that you know pertains to this whole Bungie situation with Sony, and really it's looking more and more like there's no fault with Sony, and the majority of the fault, if not everything, is with Bungie. And they pretty much self-destructed themselves, and Pete Parsons basically run the company into the ground and has been the only one left standing without any responsibility. It really does feel like right now Destiny has no future. Um, the way that it's actually going, there's no real updates. They've already confirmed there's no new expansions. Apparently, Destiny 3 was actually never a thing. Project Payback, which was supposed to be this Destiny 3 thing, actually wasn't. It's not Destiny 3. It was supposed to be like a spin-off of sorts, something different, but in the Destiny universe. And that was actually run by Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy, who, as you may have heard from last night, are also no longer with the company. Whether they were part of the layoffs, I'm hearing they were part of the layoffs. I'm also hearing that they actually left on their own accord after the project was shelved. Now, apparently, this Project Payback was actually shelved a little while ago. It didn't just happen recently. With that being their main project, once that got shelved, they basically had enough and said, this isn't the Bungie that we invested 10 years in. And it's a real shame because when we're looking at Destiny, it was a 10-year journey. They've completed that. They have the whole Light and Dark saga. And the worst part of it is none of it is actually preserved. You can't, with Destiny 1, you can go and play the whole thing right now if they keep the servers even open after Bungie's collapse. And it's imminent, right? The actual collapse for Bungie is imminent. And that's the worst part of all of this. Destiny 2, with the way they sunset everything and just dismantle the whole thing, if you never played Destiny 2, you can't complete the story anymore. You jump in at some point, and it made the game extremely unattractive. But the fact that Destiny 3 wasn't ever a thing, and they kind of misled in parts the community with this, is actually bad. But no matter which way you're looking at it, this whole ordeal stops. The buck stops with the CEO. He's the one in charge. And, the projections, I've seen the projections that he was giving Sony, negative 45% projections. That's crazy, right? That's crazy. And, it's clear that Sony overpaid for this, way overpaid for this. Right? They overpaid for this by a margin. 3.6 billion. From what I'm hearing at the moment, if they hadn't actually sold at the time to Sony, there was a good chance that they would have gone into liquidation. I mean, if you're looking on screen at the moment, you'll see Stephen Tortillo. He says, when I spoke to ex-Bungie workers about yesterday's big cuts, this round was apparently in the works prior to Final Shape. Now that means that even if Final Shape was the best-selling expansion of all time, this process was well underway before them. Lightfall, which was their best-selling expansion, which ultimately turned out to be the biggest flop of all, and they knew it was going to flop because it was such a bad update. Nothing in that update was actually memorable, worthwhile, or useful. It was just a really bad expansion. And from all the hype that they gave and all the lies that they told, that trust with Lightfall went. You need to make sure in a game like Destiny, when you're sunsetting everything and you set up like a £300 paywall just to be able to get into the game properly, to be able to, do the content from before, that you don't break that trust, because people aren't paying £300 just to get invested in your game. So the people that you have are all you have. And, they may bring in a few friends here and there with word of mouth, but that's it. And the trust that they broke with Lightfall was huge. But, he says here the feeling is Bungie bosses oversold studio to Sony. Now, from what I'm hearing, I think it was Destin that said that, when EA bought Respawn, in the first year they returned 700, they invested 700 million for the studio. The first year they returned 700 million. So they actually returned the investment within the first year. Bungie in their first year returned 200 million from that $3.6 billion. And on top of that, where did that 3.6 billion go? $1 billion of that was supposed to be to retain staff. This money just doesn't evaporate into nothingness. We're not talking about small change of like maybe a couple of 100,000 here. We're talking $3.6 billion, right? That's a lot of money. That's just magically gone away. It looks like Bungie decided that they were going to try a few ideas, a few failed projects, but all of this has to be accounted for somewhere. But it looks like the management at Bungie, in particular Pete Parsons, he just didn't know how to do anything. He didn't know how to do his job. He didn't know how to manage the company. And we're starting to see a cycle here, right? We're starting to see a real bad cycle here. I mean, let's just go back to the beginning when Bungie was with Microsoft. And Bungie turned around and, you'll see here Marty, the musician, you'll see it on screen. But he turned around and said that it's all Microsoft's fault. But for him to come out and say this is Microsoft's fault and you don't know anything, it was what he was saying. Now, I think the community know enough. And I think Sony knows enough as well. And I think Activision knew enough as well. And I think Microsoft clearly saw the writing on the wall as well, especially when there was rumors before Sony took Bungie that Bungie actually went back to Microsoft to try and acquire them. And Microsoft said, no, they're not getting into that bed ever again. And now we know why. But, Bungie said that Microsoft leadership were the problem and they had to split. Then they went with Activision. And then they said Activision leadership were the problem, despite the fact that Pete Parsons put into writing into the actual contract that if Bungie failed to deliver according to the contract, Activision would own the IP of Destiny. He actually put that down as collateral, right? That's crazy how mentally deranged this guy is. But at the same time, Activision decided not to trigger that clause and gave them the extension. But Activision were the bad guys here. So now that Activision is out of the picture, they went into bed with Sony. And guess what? There's problems again. So maybe, just maybe, I'm just putting this out there, that maybe it wasn't Microsoft, like Marty continues to say. Maybe it wasn't Activision, and maybe it's not Sony. Maybe, just maybe, this is like, maybe Bungie leadership was the problem after all, and their mismanagement of the whole situation. Now, Stephen Tortillo's article says, I think Sony overpaid for Bungie. One of the former insiders said, on condition of anonymity to avoid damaging their career, I think Bungie sold things they were just not able to deliver. And this is something that I said in my stream yesterday, that this is where I think it went. They kind of oversold themselves. Geez, you'd think upper management would learn by now. Oh, wait. And that's pretty damning, right? That's pretty damning. But, if we return back to the original image, not selling would have been worse. Source, the alternate history is insolvency. So they didn't really have that big of a choice to actually not sell, right? They had to in the end. Because Pete Parsons just couldn't manage the company. And everyone should be pointing their finger at Pete Parsons. And I'm seeing some people saying that he's not to blame. Now, what he does with his money, buying 50 cars, 100 cars, what rich people do, I don't care. Right? Rich people do rich things. They go and buy yachts, they go and buy this, they go and buy that. It really doesn't bother me. What bothers me is how they run the company. What they do with their own personal money is their own personal money. So I know some people might not be able to make that distinction, but there is a clear distinction there. However, that $3.6 billion that was given to Bungie Corporation was $3.6 billion given to Bungie. Where did that money go? Where did they flounder $3.6 billion? It's crazy. And, with the giants like, Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy having left, I think that's it. I mean, to me, that's the camel back broken, as the saying goes, right? I've had my mixed feelings with Bungie, right? I think they lost their way a long time ago. Being able to have, removing the grind from Destiny by being able to craft weapons, especially, was, a really bad choice. Sunsetting Worlds was a bad option. A lot of my friends quit when that happened, when they removed content, and now they say that they don't need to remove content. So why was you removing content in the first place? Like, a lot of decisions that they made were just bad decisions. And the content was just a rematch of a reskin. Nothing really new ever came into Destiny. But it was a game that, persisted. And it's one of the longest ones. And it's going to be a shame to see it go. I mean, Destiny 2 now has, two experiences that's coming throughout the year. Each basic chunk of content has 6 months. And that's it. That's it. And these are small content, drops. They're not the big content drops that we're used to. It's essentially in maintenance mode. Small content drops to continue the cash cow. That's it. Everything now for Bungie rests on Marathon. Marathon is where they're at. Marathon is basically their one Hail Mary to make it work. I mean, we don't even know what's happening with the NetEase game. Was Payback the NetEase game? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But there was this whole 350 million investment from NetEase to Bungie that they were supposed to make a mobile version of, or a mobile game with them. Whatever happened to that? That just disappeared into nothingness. People are now saying, I mean, even I said that Sony ruined and systematically destroyed Bungie, and I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. This isn't a Sony situation. Sony is just now trying to save their investment. $3.6 billion is a lot of money. This company was not worth $3.6 billion. And it clearly was a knee-jerk reaction to Microsoft buying ABK, and they didn't want to look weak to their shareholders, so they went out and did a knee-jerk reaction and, were oversold something that clearly should have been a fraction of the cost. But with Marathon landing in 2025, there being no hype for this game whatsoever. Like, at all. It's an extraction shooter that they believe is going to, be up there with the likes of Tarkov and whatnot. And from the last thing I heard, they turned it into like a hero shooter for a extraction shooter. I mean, they don't even know where they're going with that one anyway, so I can't see that one being successful. I genuinely can't see, this going anywhere. But the buck stops with the CEO. And you've seen all the executives, the ones that were actually good at their job, the ones that actually cared about what Destiny is, what Bungie is, all of those people are gone. Say what you will about Luke, say what you will about Mark, they actually cared for the company. But it looks like Pete doesn't give two shits about the company. All he cares about is his paycheck and making sure he's still getting paid. And this is just, I don't know, like, the more I'm reading into this, the more I'm seeing it. And apparently Jason Schreier has another news drop that's landing. He obviously has me blocked. So if anyone sees it, please send it my way, tag me, and I'll check it out. But I don't know, man. This the more I'm reading into this, the more I'm seeing this is bad. I mean, Lightfall was supposed... I mean, even the part that gets me is the fact that even if this game, Final Shape, delivered phenomenally and was the best update it ever had, it didn't matter. They were gone. And they were all going to go. This decision was made ages ago. And they basically just use the staff to make sure they can get to their end. I know they say all good things come to an end, and it does. And, at least they managed to finish the Light and Dark saga, right? They actually managed to finish the story of Destiny. Whatever comes next, but they finished the story that they originally set out to do. And at least they can say, the developers, the people that care for the game, the people that follow the franchise, the lawmakers, and everyone else, they made it to the end. But to go out like this on such piss poor management, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. But it's such a shame. But how many of you genuinely believe that, Marathon is going to be the Hail Mary savior? Because everything now banks on this one game. Everything is on Marathon. And if Marathon fails, that is the end of Bungie. And it's all because of one guy. And the part that pisses me off more than anything is the fact that he is still employed. When he internally, systematically screwed Bungie over at every turn, at every opportunity for his own personal greed and gain. Why has Sony still retained him? This is probably literally the only thing that I'm upset with Sony for. Sony should get rid of him. He is the CEO. Instead of punishing everyone else in the company, instead of punishing all the other staff, senior management who are seemingly doing their job and doing it well, why not punish the person where the buck stops? Who lied to you, oversold to you, wasted money, floundered money, underdelivered, failed in his duty, and wasted your money. Why is he still here? Because he shouldn't be here. He should not be there. He should be removed. And if Pete Parsons had any, humanity in him, he would do the right thing and resign. But these rich people, they have no humanity. They will suck the blood dry until there is nothing left to give and then move on to the next cattle. Sony should get rid of him because, I agree with Destin on this one. The buck stops with him. It always stops with the CEO because he's the one at the top of the food chain pushing these decisions. And I ask again, as the final point of this video, where on earth did that $3.6 billion go? Especially with the January layoffs, where people were being laid off just before their term to be eligible for that payout that they had, where they were told if you stay a year, you can get a bonus payout from that $1 billion. And, Pete was actually getting rid of these people just before their 1-year tenure. There was red flags from back then. And I called this out. And I was pissed. And yet here we are, the same scumbag, douchebag, doing the exact same thing. That's it, folks. That's all I've got for you for today. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And let's have that discussion. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've made it this far. Hit that bell to stay up to date with all content I release, and I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend.